Thank you for joining us on Hacking the Truth. I'm your host, James Trinkle Clements, with my co-host, Justin Bobbitt. On Hacking the Truth, we will challenge you to examine your convictions and explore the hidden agenda behind today's headlines. You'll hear from individuals who are now bringing untold stories into the light, revealing truths never told before. Well, Justin, this is Earth Day, and we have a very special show, and I think we have a lot of good information we're going to share with people.
I'm excited. It's a big day.
It is a big day. And in fact, for the planet, there are going to be people. Well, no, they won't be people all over the planet.
It's kind of a unique Earth Day.
Yeah, it's going to be an Earth in House Day.
Yeah.
A greenhouse.
Well, I'm pretty sure they advised us to turn off our power and stay at home anyways in other years, so I guess we're halfway there.
We are halfway there, and we're going to talk about a number of things. One of my passions my entire life has been water. I just like clean water, good tasting water. Ever since I was a kid, I would go to Lynchburg, Virginia, and I remember getting water that came right out of the mountain, and of course right out of the well we had at the house, and it had the sweetest, clearest taste to it, and I hadn't been able to find that anywhere else until I did some searching. And what I found, there is a company called Rising Springs Water in the Sawtooth Mountains in Utah, and I have the box right here, and they are not paying me to do this, okay? I am doing this because...
Rising Waters, if you're listening, or Rising Springs, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I said Rising Waters.
If you're listening, we're open.
Rising Springs, and it says right here, a 16,000-year journey. This water flows out of the mountain under its own pressure. It's not pumped. When it comes out of the mountain, it actually flows across some quartz. Now, I'm not going to say the quartz does anything to it. People believe it does. That's up to you. But I will tell you, this water comes from 2.2 miles deep in the mountain. It is the most pure water I have found. It has natural minerals. Its alkaline is balanced. And you can order it, as you see. I get 2 of these a month. But my theory with really good water is you should drink 8 ounces the first thing when you get up and flush your system in the morning. That's the way I feel about it, folks.
And that's easy water to drink.
It's
it doesn't
very,
have
and
that.
In fact, that's what I have right here in my coffee cup, is Rising Springs water. So take a look. You can see their website. We've got that up there, and we have a link for it, and just check it out. Like I say, they're not paying me for this. That's how I feel about the product. And speaking of water, I've said for many years, and I used to have a water treatment company, that our real crisis not only is rising waters, but it's going to be the amount of fresh water to drink is becoming a real problem. And so where do we get it? How is it treated?
Water is a commodity.
Oh, very much so. And people say, well, we'll do desalinization. Very, very expensive process to do that. But when I spoke of going to Lynchburg, Virginia, and that great water, if I can take you on a little visual trip through Florida in the 50s and 60s, and if you could have seen how pristine Florida was, I mean, right out of Jacksonville, not far, the orange groves would start. There was no interstate highway. You could see an alligator. You had the alligator shows, and you had all these neat things, and you could stop and sample the orange juice. I was fortunate enough to be able to see old Florida before it went away. And what a gorgeous, pristine, beautifully underdeveloped and undeveloped state it was, and we have screwed it up. As we have this entire country, and people say, they're going to wait to go to heaven. Well, I think back then it was pretty much heaven. How beautiful Florida was in this country, that you could travel. It was uncrowded and unpolluted. But things change.
Well, that's, I think, why people flocked here. And
yeah, they flocked here, and they flocked in numbers. And really it started after the Second World War. And the first major subdivision that was built in suburbia. It was called Levittown. And you can see some pictures there. Obviously, on the podcast, you can't see the pictures of Levittown. And what we've now come to know today is suburbia, where we're all crammed in these homes that you can reach out and touch each other. But if you look at that picture and you think about water, and if you consider each one of those homes has a straw, and that straw is stuck down in the aquifer or wherever water comes from, how many straws can you put in before you start depleting it? Excuse me. Before you start depleting it. Well, it's already happened in Florida. The springs, or Silver Springs, is nothing like it used to be. And there we'll show a picture of me at Silver Springs when I was 10 years old. I'm the little fellow on the right, number 4.
It's funny, I spent a lot of time there too. I grew up in Ocala.
You grew up, yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah, Silver Springs right down the road. Now they have a lot of concerts there. They're trying to bring more locals in, and the nature pull doesn't seemingly do what it used to.
Sure.
Just saying this is untouched, pristine. It's not so untouched anymore. The glass bottom boats still get people there though. But they have a lot of concerts.
A lot of concerts. I remember that. It's probably been 10 years since I've been there. But I did notice in the spring it wasn't nearly as pristine as it was. And the flow rate was nothing like it used to be. I forget how many millions of gallons flow out of the springs.
Well, we've all got a straw into it. So
yeah, we all do. And those springs provide 90% of the drinking water for our state. So they're very important. And people are trying to protect them as best they can, and hopefully we'll do better than we have in the past. Now, you've done some diving. Tell us about that.
Yes, all over Florida, really. A lot of the springs, Jenny Springs, going through Troy Springs, I believe, just pristine. Now, those are state parks. They keep them very tightly controlled. And the dives there are always, everyone's very conscientious of what they're leaving, not taking anything away. It's not quite your average person that just goes to the beach and ends up leaving trash all over the place. Divers generally are kind of conservationists already. But yes, Silver Springs, I have not dove Silver Springs. I believe they do now allow it.
Okay.
But in Central Florida, there's so many options for diving. You could spend every weekend going somewhere new, and it would take a few years to blast through all of them. But yeah, Silver Springs, incredible. Now they have an entirely different problem. I guess there's wild monkeys that have been.
They've been. Well, they were there when I went as a kid. They were released there, and they filmed parts of Tarzan movie there. Sea Hunt, a television series, part of it was there. And different movies they've done there.
They didn't do the Bond movie with the submarine car.
No, that was in the Bahamas.
Gotcha.
That was in the Bahamas.
Would have been good.
Yes, would have been good. But keeping our springs pristine, or as clean as we can, is very important. And all over the world, we're facing these problems with pollution, with water, with fresh water, everywhere you look, because the Earth is 70% water, but only 3% of that is potable. I mean, you can only drink 3% of it. We're 70% water. 2 things you can't do without: air and water. So drink the best water you can. And unfortunately, the water going into your home is not the best water because it's treated with chlorine.
And old pipes.
And old pipes and a number of things. So I highly recommend the minimum a carbon filter to take out the chlorine, but to really look at some excellent products to really get your water as clean as you can.
There's some new UV alternatives that people have
there's
started rolling out.
UV you can do, treat water, a number of ways. Go on the internet and search around, and I'm going to be trying a new countertop water purification system, which I will report on at a later date. We're going to try that and see how it works. But getting to that, one of the most important things for the public to know about, and they really do not understand this, the water you drink has been recycled about 10 times. And you may get a water report, which I do here at the beaches from the city, saying, well, your water is good, this level is okay here, and well, who sets these levels, and who says this amount of chemicals and lead is okay?
And what's being tested? what
Yes.
isn't being tested.
How accurate? Well, you're saying it's okay for me, but I've been drinking it for 60 years. Am I
Yeah.
really okay? And the newer problem is actually the antibiotics we take, the stuff we flush down the toilet, the stuff we urinate, that's
Hormone
gone through our
therapies
system.
that have gone through.
Yeah, and they're in the water too. And there's right now we're not filtering
No.
those out. So is that
We didn't build those systems and expect that. We
no?
didn't.
We didn't. And so now those are prevalent. They're not being tested. And where does that leave us? Is that a contributing factor to this explosion rate of cancer? I've always said chlorinated water is. Not scientific at all. I just personally believe it. But you cannot continually just add these things into your body and say, well, they have no effect at all. I don't believe that. So, but again, I leave that up to you. I've hacked my truth, you hack yours. But be very careful of the water you drink. And bottled water is not always the answer. You got that little airspace there. Bacteria grows in there, folks. It is not vacuum sealed. So you're better off with a carbon filter at your spigot and put it in.
Well, and like with your the water that you've been having delivered, it matters where it comes from.
Oh, absolutely.
It just because it's tap water from another country and they bottle it and call it artesian.
Yeah.
Do your homework.
Yeah. Now, in Florida, when I talked in the 50s and 60s, certainly the water the city was delivering to you that was chlorinated was certainly better than the water we have today because we had just started building homes. We were taking pure water out of the ground.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. But now the total recycling of the water, which they have to, lends itself to not a very good product.
Well, and as a more recent homeowner, our desire to have green grass annoys me to no end. Nothing would make me happier than to rip out my entire lawn and put a bunch of rocks down. But I see all the chemicals being put on the ground, and that's just leaching straight in.
It is, and that runoff of that nitrogen has caused our rivers and streams in Jacksonville. Most of them you can't fish anymore. When I was a kid, I'd just go to the Ortega River or anywhere and just throw a line in bamboo pole and catch
Those
fish.
days are gone.
Those are way gone. They've been gone for probably 25 years. But when you have so many people move in, as that earlier picture showed of suburbia, and a little bit in defense of the human beings that we are, we didn't know it was going to be that big of a problem.
We had no idea.
No. That these fertilizers, that there would be that much runoff. There was no studies. We didn't start recognizing it until the problem had already developed. So on Earth Day, I think we know, and I agree with you. I have big portion of my yard is rock, and I would love not to have. No, I like grass.
Yes.
We can have some smaller patches of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's in talking about water around the globe. It is one of the most important things for the health of not only the United States and your city and your state, for the world. And to clean up the water is one of the most important things we can do.
Access to it.
And access to it, absolutely. And if you get a chance, try that Rising Springs. It's really good.
And not to plug a beer company, but I was always impressed by Stella.
Yes.
Every Christmas, they run their Stella Stein program where you buy one of their glasses and it provides water to, I believe, either Africa or they have a community that they've picked or a country that they've picked. And I did it last year. You just buy a glass, you feel good about having purchased water for someone else, and you get a nice beer glass out of it.
Yes. Oh, well, that's very good.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Well, and a lot of people, we are, and we're talking about Earth Day, we are more aware of recycling, of things we can do to at least help a little bit, because we are growing in population. The stress on the environment is going to be even, 2, 3, 4 times more in the next 2 or 3 decades. And we are making strides in that direction. Hopefully it'll get a lot better.
They are making some advancements in desalinization, but they just haven't.
Well, it's just very expensive
Yeah,
right now.
the energy
It-
input and what you get out.
Yeah, what you get out of
Yeah.
it. The
Protect our springs.
yes, protect
Earth
our
is doing
springs.
this for us.
That's right. And maybe this information will inspire you to do your part to help the environment.
Jim, we got the Florida Times-Union this morning, and you found a really interesting article.
I did. I'll even hold it up here so you can see that. It's called it's titled, Protect the Okefenokee, which is one of my favorite places to go. Here in North Florida, we have the Everglades to the south and the Okefenokee in Georgia to the north. And this is one of the most unique places on earth. And Okefenokee in Indian means land of the trembling earth because the swamp moves. It has, I won't even go to the wildlife and try to tell you how many species and how special this place is. I think you can tell I love it. I love going there.
One of our natural filters for this planet.
Yeah. And I'll mention the Sierra Club right off. You can get in touch with them because we are trying to fight something. And what we're trying to fight is they want to mine 2.6 miles from the Okefenokee. And they're going to do the mining. And, of course, they tell us, well, this is not going to hurt anything. It's going to be fine. It's far enough away. We've done all our research. Of course it's not, because there's plenty of other instances where it hasn't worked. There's a film called Dark Waters, and both of us highly recommend that film.
You need to watch it if you haven't seen it. I had no idea that any of this happened, and I felt uninformed not knowing that it happened.
And it was about West Virginia. Please watch it because the tie-in to this, now they're mining titanium. I don't know much about how you mine titanium, but obviously it's got to have some effect on the environment, the water. Then why do you have to be 2.6 miles from the Okefenokee? Because what happens is that, let's say they do mine it, and it's just minimal. You think they're going to stop with one mine? Then you got two. Then you got, by the time you have 10, then you've really affected the swamp. And then, sorry, we didn't know it was going to happen kind of deal.
Oh, and underneath that swamp is our water supply.
Yes. 20 years ago, another company tried to mine titanium, and they stopped them, and that was the DuPont Corporation. And if you watch Dark Waters, I'll let you make your own conclusions about the DuPont Corporation. But this is something that it hasn't been okayed. It's going in front of the Georgia legislature. So obviously anyone in Georgia should really be on top of this, and really anyone in the United States. If we don't start protecting these places from the intrusion and like the fracking that's going on in Pennsylvania, all this has tremendous effects on the environment. The problem is, once it's happened, we can't reverse it. You can't go into the Okefenokee and say, okay, we'll bring 100,000 dump trucks of dirt and hey, it'll be fine.
And
You've destroyed the freaking ecosystem.
We're not against the march of progress and innovation, and you just have to protect what you know needs protecting.
Yes. There's nothing like corporate greed. I want to tell you. There ain't nothing like it, buddy. And that's why we're living in houses and all cramped together. If I had my way, which I won't, if we could just build, when we built all our subdivisions, we should have a house, an empty lot, a house, an empty lot, and then that nice rainwater could go through the filtration system right into the ground and replenish the aquifer.
Urban heating,
Mm-hmm.
just the inability for Earth to have cooling like it used to when it just hit the ground. Now it's hitting concrete and
everything's heating up. So that's my soapbox I'll stand on for a while.
Jim, I found out some interesting facts about Earth Day and how coronavirus has really affected our pollution. Only about a third of us in the world are locked down right now. But some of the pictures coming out of cities are incredible, especially some of the more heavily polluted cities. We have a picture that we're showing you here of China, some of the smog that was detected above China about a month and a half ago, and now you can see that it's drastically dropped. They do expect this to be somewhat of a temporary.
It doesn't even look like the same place.
No, not at all. And we see here that they've estimated pollution levels are down right about 25%. The 96% of global destinations have introduced travel restrictions. So that's definitely helped with the flights coming in and out, all that fuel not being used. And Allstate's CEO has estimated that between about 35 and 50% of the United States has stopped driving or not driving near as often as they were. So that's something good to come out of this. But we're showing you pictures of, I have a picture here of India. India.
Wow.
Yeah, it is in this site. Let me actually get the name of it. This is the India Gate War Memorial in New Delhi. You can see here before all the smog, you can barely see the structure at all. And now they say that it is the longest spell of clean air on record.
I believe it. And probably around the globe.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be. Since the industrial age, I would think so. Think of the number of cars that aren't being driven. The factories aren't open. But it is amazing to see.
And we're showing you now this picture of New Delhi before. This is that is dated November 8th, 2018. Now here's a picture of New Delhi April 8th.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't look like the same place.
No, it's incredible. And stargazers have also mentioned that now there's not all the flights messing up their photography. So we should have some really amazing pictures of space.
Oh, yeah, and the haze
yes.
that's up there.
Yes.
When I traveled the country on my motorcycle, I went to the Grand Canyon, and you could just see completely across the Grand Canyon. Well, I read something a number of years ago that the pollution is so great you can't see across the Grand Canyon anymore. I never thought about it. I wonder how the Grand Canyon looks today. Probably pristine and clean. So everybody keeps saying home, okay?
And even though this is temporary, there are things that we can do in our daily lives that can extend the good that is coming out of this. And you had some ideas about recycling that...
Yeah. Not only what goes into the air, it's what goes into the ground, it's how you transport it. My feeling about recycling is so few things actually can be recycled, because if you look on the bin and on the garbage can here and the beaches, it tells you what you can't. You put styrofoam in it, certain types of plastic, no plastic bags, which are the biggest problem. So what can you do? My feeling about recycling and the products we use, we have to address it at the source. It's never going to work if you're going to expect the homeowner and the person who's busy doing things can really pay enough attention to make an impact. So what we need to do, this old guy, when I was growing up, but it's true that we got our milk either in cartons or delivered to our home in glass bottles. Everything was paper, the paper bags at the grocery store, the cartons of milk, the little carton, the butter was always wrapped in cardboard. Nothing was in plastic. I'll give you an example. This is an orange juice, and this is actually today. Unplugged Florida's Natural. The only thing plastic is here, and hopefully that's recyclable. But this is wax cardboard. Think if all of our milk came in this. Think if our soda went back to being soda bottles that we used to get a penny or 2 pennies.
Yeah, they incentivized
the bringing it back.
Yeah.
As kids, we'd love it when people leave them on the ground. We'd get the little 6-pack and go in and buy all the penny candy we wanted. That's how old I am, penny candy. But think about that. If all the soda, now soda cans, they can be recycled. But those big plastic liters, maybe some of them.
How many people actually do?
They don't.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They're left. And even the cans. People throw but people do go around and collect aluminum. I'll say that for them. Aluminum's one of the things that possibly we could keep around. But think how many things we could put in paper. And the reason we stopped putting them in paper is because the environmentalists said we were cutting down too many trees. Well, my argument to that is, number one, we have tree farms now, and a lot of the paper companies grow their own product. And number two, and you may not believe this, you can hack the truth on it, we now have more linear footage of trees on Earth than we have ever had. You say, well, how can that be? Because we clear so much land and we do this. Folks, trees grow up too. They don't just grow out. This neighborhood I live in, I had some pictures from the fellow across the street, and it was scrub pines, very small pine trees, some big ones, but most of them were just little bushes in here, and they mowed it all down. Everything here was planted. We got a canopy now. That's how much it's grown in 60 years. So there's a lot of paper out there, and there's a lot of forest. And think of things we can recycle the paper. Here's Rising Springs. Cardboard, got a plastic piece inside that can be recycled. They did a great job with theirs. So the manufacturers, if we put enough pressure on them and say, we want to go back, use paper bags, my God, we got to get rid of plastic bags. And then what I do, I take the paper bag, I put it in a small trash can, I put my recycle in it, take the large paper bag out and put it in the recycle. So you're recycling everything. So if we don't attack it at the source, it's never going to work.
When I was impressed when I was growing up in Ocala, and I don't know if this was just something that I wasn't really noticing, but we would have to deliver the recycling. They had trash pickup, but recycling was a little bit more, it just hadn't become so prevalent. I don't know if they currently have a recycling pickup that comes around much like we do here in Jacksonville. But for the longest time, everyone just threw everything away. And it matters where that garbage ends up. We used to ship it to China and they would process it for us because they wanted that recycling for us. But now they don't want it anymore. And a lot of the cities and states are stopping their programs for recycling because they can't afford to do it. It was affordable and they were saving money when they were just shipping it overseas. But now that's not a reality. And
well, and Chinese were caught taking our recycling that they didn't want, what they pilfered through and got what they could use, putting it on barges and taking it out in the ocean and dumping it.
Just sinking it.
And we have some pictures, and you'll probably show, of beaches that are just covered in trash. It's unbelievable.
The beach that we're showing you right now, that is from the Philippines.
Okay.
There's more plastic than sand. It's and these kids are just playing in it, and that's business as usual. This is every day for them. It doesn't even faze them. And one of the ramifications of this, where this article got pulled from, I'm showing you a picture of some of the staff in the Philippines examining the contents of a dead whale's stomach, washed up on the Philippines with 100 pounds worth of trash in its stomach. They found it was 88 pounds specifically.
88 pounds of plastic?
88 pounds of plastic. Died from gastric shock, dehydration, and starvation. They found, among other things, 16 rice sacks, 4 banana plantation style bags, and multiple shopping bags. So it couldn't get nutrition, and the leach.
Sad.
Yeah, it's
very
terrible.
sad.
There was so much plastic in its system that it couldn't get nourishment from food, and it died from dehydration and starvation. A whale in the ocean died from dehydration.
It's an ongoing problem and a terrible problem. And again, I will stress, we must address it at the source. To think. And another thing, the mindset of Americans, unfortunately, they think everyone thinks the way we think.
Yeah.
I've traveled to a lot of places, third world countries. They do not. They do not have the same morals we have. They don't have the same ethics. and they don't have the same sanitation we have. They are just trying to exist. That's all they're trying to do. So they're going, oh, why can't this country do that or this country do that? And often I hear the criticism of Americans, well, look what they did in Switzerland. Why can't we do that? Or the Netherlands or Germany. Those countries aren't even big as Georgia. It's a lot easier to do it in a small country than a country like the United States. I think we've done, I give us a C+ so far from
Some
where
of the
we were
states are
20
doing-
years
yeah.
ago. We now scrub the smoke coming out of smokestacks. It's been greatly reducing pollution. Do we need to look at it closer? Absolutely. And as I said in the beginning, water is a real concern for me. And this even, look at the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a horrible thing to see. But I'm an optimist at that point. I hope we can do more. I believe we want to do more, and that's the key. You've got to want to. You got to replace those bad habits with another habit that you want something more than you already have. So maybe staying home for 5 weeks or 6 weeks, which are going on 8 weeks, probably is not pleasant. We can kind of reassess where we are as a people, not only as individuals, but as groups, and say, it was bad, but, we learned a lot, not only about each other, but we could think a lot about this world and how we're going to participate in it. Hope so.
When you see Earth somewhat rebalancing right before our eyes, you see these
Yes.
pictures of animals now coming out into the city wondering, this used to be loud and chaotic. Let's see what's out there.
Yeah, we got sheep
yeah.
wandering in streets and towns.
Yeah.
Because go online. It's hilarious to watch them. They'll walk in and go, I kind of like this. Yeah.
And on a terrifying note, apparently the rats in New Orleans have started fighting each other because they're used to eating all the scraps dropped by all the tourists. But that's all the bars are shut down.
Oh.
And their massive rat population is now attacking the city.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
They're going to find food somewhere.
Yeah.
But if we can make strides in doing that, and if you would really like to show your children, give them an example, you've got to be the example.
In doing more at home, it's easy to throw things in recycling, but it's difficult to deal with the organic waste that could be composted.
Yes.
That's a massive source of nutrients that we could be using for vegetable gardens or just fertilizing in general. And I think they estimate that about 60% of the waste volume, I'd have to get the exact number, it's somewhere around 60, organic waste is what we're throwing away alongside the plastics. And that can easily be turned into something that's
compost.
Worth it.
Yeah, it can be.
And taking that weight and volume from our garbage means we're just throwing away less.
Yes.
It's easier for them. It'll be cheaper for us too. We won't have to pay so much for our utility services to clean up all of our waste management services if they don't have to pick up as much.
And if we can just hammer on the heads of some of these manufacturers who, in their quest for bigger shelf space, they'll have a plastic container that you see through. You're going to get whatever.
The Whole Foods orange.
Yeah, or you go to anywhere, Lowe's or anything, and you want this little, and it's in this piece of plastic that's this big, and you got to have big scissors to cut. It's a huge piece of plastic. I got something from.
Let's say you ordered was it a battery?
One battery from Amazon,
Yeah.
and it came in a box this big. I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. Came in a box, and I said, "What? I can't remember ordering anything." And it was maybe because of so many people out of work.
Yeah.
I'll have to give them a
Well, it
break.
was right at the beginning. It was like week 2 or 3 of things starting to get weird, and
Hey, Carl, where's the envelope? Oh,
Yeah.
put it in a box. But it's a battery.
you could have put 2 pairs of shoes in the box you received 1 battery from.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. Luckily, the box is recyclable. I'll give them that.
Well, and you mentioned manufacturers. It does come down to manufacturers to make a lot of these changes. The consumer can push for it. And there's been a movement we're going to talk about cosmetics and microplastics. There was a push in cosmetics to not test on animals as much. And a lot of the manufacturers had no desire to do that until they found an audience willing to pay a little extra for products that didn't harm animals.
And now most of them will have that little sign on the product, no animals used, in testing of this product. And which leads us to, in your cosmetic talk, about something these young girls, I've got 7 granddaughters.
Yes.
And boy, do they like that glitter.
Yeah, I came across this, and those of you that love glitter, I'm sorry. There's a large audience of glitter lovers. A lot of the problem that has stemmed from cosmetics and glitter is microplastics. We heard about it for years, and about 4 or 5 years ago in 2015, they actually banned microplastics in products that were exfoliating for your face, your body washes, that you would just take the little, the little micro beads that were in it that would scrub whatever off.
They put it in soap sometimes too.
Absolutely. Well, what they didn't take into account is that those microplastics are smaller than what the filters are able to handle, and they're not made to handle those microplastics, so they end up in the water systems. And they've permeated everything, including the food supply, because the plankton, the fish eat them, and then they end up on your table. And we thought that we had most of it dealt with, or at least we had a good feeling of having most of it dealt with when we banned the exfoliating products. But microplastics still exist in cosmetics. It was an exemption. They didn't know, or they didn't think that it was as much of a problem as it is. But the glitters in cosmetics are often not biodegradable. And you wash them off in the shower, they go down the drain the same way as those exfoliating products and causes the exact same issue. There are a few brands that have tried to make better decisions. Mica powder has a very similar reflective property that the plastics have. The problem run into by, I believe the company was Lush. They were using mica. They were at least one of the early ones to use mica as a substitute. They were using it though from the supply chain was mined in India, and they were using child labor. So that
did them in.
Yeah, it did not work well for them, but they were actually fighting hard and synthesized a mica-like powder that does not have some of the implications from the mined mica. But it is a massive problem that the breakdown and release of the chemicals can actually disrupt human and animal hormones. And that's why it's such a big issue. Like the whale that we discussed with the plastics, he was dehydrated and couldn't get any nutrition in.
Yeah.
The damage caused to hormone systems by plastics breaking down in your body. There's a reason we don't eat credit cards. It's not good for you. And the amount that we eat indirectly from our supply chain and the food, there's a great amount of consumption of plastic. I swear the number was over the course of a year, you have like 4 credit cards worth of plastic you accidentally consume.
Well,
due to all
4?
Like 4. It's like you just sat down and ate 4 licenses.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll have to get, and I'll put up at the bottom the exact number because I want you guys to know how much plastic you're accidentally consuming. It's terrifying. And some of these cosmetic companies are really trying to make a difference. But for those of you that are buying bath bombs that have glitter in them, body lotions, you need to make sure that it's biodegradable. Oftentimes it's not. And the bath bomb, I saw someone online, the bath bomb kits that you would get at the hobby store just has a bag of glitter in it. And you pour that bag straight down the drain. It's going straight into the water system.
I didn't know that. That's horrible.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No, but it's not regulated. It just the only issue that they cared about that seemingly fixed one problem was the exfoliants, which I will say, I swear for like 2 years solid, every product for the shower had microbeads. It was the thing. It was like Starbucks had just opened.
I know it. It really was. I didn't like them at all.
No.
When they were in the products.
I honestly like the what is it? The orange soap with the pumice.
Yeah,
That's better
yeah.
than anything.
Oh yeah, the pumice is good. Yeah, that's really good.
Well, on this Earth Day, I hope we've given you something to think about, some way to better our Earth. We've been doing I can't say we've been doing a decent job, but we're at least trying. People do recycle.
Pretty decent. Yeah, I think we're about 40% there,
Yeah.
maybe 35. We need to be about 70%
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
to really have a great effect. But I will say America has definitely made strides. Other companies such as China, I don't know what you're going to do globally. It's going to be very difficult, but we cannot give up hope, and we must continue to try.
And when these factories ramp back up, just understand that we are the reason that they are polluting the products we're purchasing. They know we don't care how it's made.
Yes.
And as long as it's cheap.
Well, and before we close, I'd like to put a little footnote in here. I've read a number of letters to the editor, and I do agree with them. We need to bring a lot of manufacturing back to this country from China. Definitely essentials we need. Here's the fact I don't think you'll really be happy about. If we had a power plant go down, all the parts are made in China.
Yeah.
They say, well, we don't have them. Well, you can have them in 6 months.
Yeah.
Anything that's essential to our life should not be manufactured outside the United States.
Pharmaceuticals.
It is just common sense. I will go to Walmart and pay $12.99 rather than $9.99 for a toaster if it's made in America.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a 25%.
And if it's actually made in America.
Yeah, actually,
just,
not labeled, which
Yes.
a lot of people are doing. I hate to tell you, it's manufactured in China. They'll bring it over here, relabel it, and sell it as made in America.
Question that made in America logo.
Yeah, it's question everything.
Yes.
So hopefully we've inspired you to take some steps, or at least inspired you to think about taking some steps. And if you're doing it, hats off to you. The earth appreciates it. And we'll see you next time. We appreciate you investing your time with us today. Thank you.